behoove you to want to be within the first third of creation, because the first third of creation is exactly that which exists in the third of creation. Notice the second third of creation. It doesn't exist at the end. So where you see the lesser than and equal to, it's going to either have to submit. Now the problem with most people is that they don't understand that religion is basically nothing but a hijack. Because when you look at what the chosen people, if you look at what the religion of Christianity or whatever Catholicism is based upon, and Jesus Christ and the Petrian ministry, and building this rock upon Peter, go forth and spread the gospel and good news and everything. But at that point where you see that church uh, being developed, you see someone taking what is a birthright away, because the Israelites, which are the ancestry of Ham and Shem, they're the Cush, the people of the Cush, and that's those are the Nubians, the African Nubians, the black, the people of the black. So when you look at who the chosen people are, if someone came to you and say, okay, he's the chosen person, what would you do to, I guess, supersede that, or to cancel that out? You would actually say you're the person's father. You would say, I'm the holy one. I'm the holy father. I'm the one that made this, or I'm the one that did all this, which is blasphemous. So we'll leave it at that. And what we will talk about next is the education in America as opposed to indoctrination. Now, what people don't understand is that there is no educational system in America. The educational system in America has long been done away with. When the 30s, 40s, 50s, when they knew that civil rights was coming about, education turned into indoctrination. It went from educating America to trying to get all these kids in these minorities in the inner cities that they're going to have to educate, how to get them to do it their way. So it became more of indoctrination and more of a training, not an education. We do not have an educational system in the United States. There will be no education. Education teaches you the truth. Education teaches you how to better yourself. Education teaches you how to think independently. You could critique things when you are talking about an educated mind. There's so many different things you could do with education that you can't do with indoctrination. Indoctrination is more or less like running a machine as opposed to making the machine. So if you're talking about the educational system in America right now, what they're indoctrinating the kids with through the videos, the games, the repetitive response, and teaching like Pavlov's the dog salivating theories and all this. I mean, it's kind of it's kind of sad, because this is what they need in order for their newly constructed ideal of what the world should be, and the population reduction through medication. One thing, and I've never backed down from, and I've always held to, is that marijuana or cannabinoids, cannabis, whatever you want to call it, is created in the first third. Man has did not create cannabis in the second third. Man cannot go out and create a cannabis plant. That was God creating it in the first third. So the the sin, and the one thing that is most troubling about the second third is not only does the second third uh, require itself to exist, it wants to exist in its own right. It also wants to exist in the first third. This is the problem with the second third. It doesn't have um, integrity. Whereas the first third knows it's the first third. It doesn't want to exist in the second third because that is the circumcision. See, the circumcision is always trying to, that which was cut away, always try to uh, infest the the source, which is the creation. It doesn't want to let go. It doesn't want to be out there. It doesn't want to disappear. It doesn't want to die. It doesn't want to be absorbed into a nothingness, a void of nothingness. So it's always trying to attach, and that's the thing. But the third takes care of all that which is not of the first third that comes through the second third and makes it through to the third will survive. Everything else perishes. So for everyone that thinks that they're gonna survive, thinking that this house that they're living in is what life is about, I'm sorry, the house is gonna one day not be there. That's how long infinity. That's why we have U infinity. It's there. What's not there is the second third. And as I was saying, I think it was two recordings ago, was that everything that was created in the first third is actually living, and it's the second third that puts these houses and roads and plastics and contaminants and pollutants and everything else in the system. Like, take for example, they're not taking the wood out of the forest to heat homes or to cook food or anything like that. They're making objects that are not, they're making inanimate objects. They're using it, and sure, I don't mind living in a house and everything like that, but I think that there was something to the way the old system of the African migration worked. I think there were certain values, and there was a certain civility and a certain rules and certain in tone and being in tune with nature, which was created, as opposed to being in, like, say, large cities and where you're surrounding yourself with a lot of inanimate dead objects. Because what you're doing is you're putting a scab, so to speak, on creation. You're covering up creation, and I think that's abomination. So everybody doesn't have the same views, but what we all will have to agree on one day, and this is what the equation states. If you put in your values into this equation, you can tell whether you're living in the first, second, or third part of creation. It's just as simple as that. There's no gray, any issue under the sun. You put it in, and you'll get your answer. And I thank you for listening. Please tell your friends, your pastors, your whomever that are interested in these type of issues, because the fact of the matter is, if you are dealing in religion, it doesn't matter if you're Baptist or whatever, Christian or Hindu, Muslim, Catholic, whatever religion you are, it was created in the second third. So you should get those principles together and see which ones actually coincide with the first third, and those that don't, you should get rid of them. Those things that don't exist in the first third, you don't you should get. I mean, you should just absolutely do away with them because those things won't survive into the third. So, you know, tell a lot of people are preaching on the prosperity and the wealth and all this, all that was created in the second third. And as I stated in, I think it was the first or the second recording, that when Gaddafi got assassinated, and that's what you have to call it, when he was assassinated by America, I mean, it was because he was trying to establish first third government, and if he would have been allowed to establish that first third government, it would have allowed Syria and the other Middle East and African countries over there to actually um, eliminate from their treasuries the United States dollar or the euro dollar or what have you. So that's that was basically the issue. And if you read anything about history going back to Kennedy, he was assassinated when he said he was going to do something about making a different kind of currency, just like Gaddafi. So I mean, it's all in the online news. You won't get that perspective from the mainstream. Now, I say this because I've watched the mainstream news and I've seen certain reporters on there. I won't mention a name, but there's certain NBC and CNN reporters that are actually doing scripted reporting and influencing the news. Like if you look at the foreign news press of what actually happened, it's totally different from what the United States news press says happened. So you could look at it that way, and you could. I mean, I like to take 4, 5, 6 different opinions before I even consider doing an op-ed on anything. So when I look at the mainstream news, and then I look at the fact that Gaddafi, um, you know, was assassinated, and that what he actually did for his people. See, the mainstream news didn't report to anyone in America that the the standard of living in Libya was far higher, and the education is far higher than the United States. And no one, they were not an indebted nation, but since Gaddafi was assassinated, now they're indebted. They're an indebted nation, and people ought to look at that because that's the first sign, and that's a sign of decay. It was a prosperous nation, and then it went into decline. Iraq did the same thing under Hussein, Saddam Hussein, and you have to look at what they call these false flag operations, and all of this takes place in the second third. None of this takes place in the first third because uh, the latest thing was the drone attacks that are occurring, and the problem with the drone attacks is that they're murdering people. They're murdering innocent kids. They're murdering people. Period. And one of the principles of the sovereignty of creation is that thou shalt not kill. So everybody that voted for, say, George Bush 1, George Bush 2, anybody, Clinton, the Rwanda thing, Obama. If anybody voted, if you're voting in the elections, and you voted for these presidents lately, you actually killed millions of people. There's no doubt about it. You actually killed millions of people, and the only way that this is going to stop, and no one seems to want to address it, is if those people who are propping up the Middle East like it is those people who are actually involved in the political process, who are who are advising these moves, unless they change, unless those people who are calling themselves Jews